Live from the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm Vasilios. That is Sean Fazende. Remember to like, subscribe, rate, and review. You guys can find us wherever you listen to and watch your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube right now, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell notification button. You get notified every time we upload a new podcast or when we go live for that matter. Yeah. Sean, happy Monday to you. Wild card weekend as of right now of this live stream is still going on with the Steelers versus the Bills in Buffalo, and we still have the Eagles versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers tonight. Yeah, and it's been an interesting weekend of wild card. I guess you call it fun, or interesting things have certainly developed over this weekend. It's a fun weekend of football, no doubt about it. If you're watching this live stream right now, you know the Steelers and Bills are going on right now. So if you happen to be watching that, want to jump on over, or if you want to watch this a little bit later, that's all good as well. Like Sil said, be sure to like, share, rate, review, subscribe to this channel, please, because we'll keep cranking out the content for you guys. And obviously, it's being a Saints-centric show, and the Saints-centric show that fits into the bigger picture of the NFL. That's how I wanted to tie it all in here today. So, Sil, why don't we get started? All right. So, big picture, as we do every show. Sean, is there anything the Saints can learn from all of these wild card weekend games, these super wild card weekend games? Yeah, I thought a lot about this as I'm watching the games, and you don't want to like force a narrative. You just hope it kind of develops naturally in front of you, and fortunately, it did develop kind of naturally in front of me while I was watching the games on Saturday and Sunday, even a little bit today, the first half of the Buffalo game. We'll see how the rest of the game ends up turning out, but. First off, happy birthday to the greatest Saint of all time. We use the term GOAT way too much in our profession, but in the Saints' case, Drew Brees truly is the greatest of all time. He turns 45 years young today, the greatest of all time, Drew Brees, when it comes to the New Orleans Saints. But perhaps it is fitting that it is number 9's birthday, given our big picture topic today. We are tying in the wild card round with the current situation involving the Saints, and like I said, this is where we're going to kind of merge those two lanes. The biggest takeaway I saw watching Saturday and Sunday's wild card round this weekend is simple. Quarterback and play caller synergy truly freaking matters. It freaking matters. We already knew this because we saw this for 15 seasons. We saw this with the birthday boy Brees and the former Saints head coach. You know his name, and it was a beautiful thing. Just perfect chemistry, choreography, almost like a Broadway show when they were in sync and they were working and play caller and quarterback and execution. I mean, there were times great football teams, not good football teams, great football teams would come to town and they would walk out just thinking, oh my goodness, what just happened? What we just got run over, ran through, run past everything by a flawless Saints offense, just precise to the millimeter. And it was a beautiful thing to watch. Now, flash forward to this weekend, that developed once again. C.J. Stroud, Bobby Slowick, Jared Goff, Johnson, Jordan Love, Matt LaFleur. It wasn't just the play of each quarterback. It was how in tune each quarterback seemed to be with their respective coordinator / play caller. Sometimes the main play caller is the head coach. Sometimes it is sort of the true offensive coordinator that's calling the plays. That's not the head coach. That's not the head coach. Which brings us to your New Orleans Saints. This synergy, this chemistry, this energy that I saw all weekend. Sil, I know you saw it too. And you're probably going to see it more with your team next week because your team with Lamar and the new coordinator, that certainly has worked magic for him as well. For sure. This synergy, this energy, this chemistry, like I said, that I saw all weekend. I even tweeted about it during the Houston game especially. I was like, my goodness, Slowick, this is your resume tape right here. This is unbelievable. You're putting on a show right now when it comes to C.J. Stroud and the play design and what you're calling. Well, that took way too long to develop between Pete Carmichael and Derek Carr. But, big but, it did happen. It wasn't like it didn't happen. The chemistry, the synergy, and the energy and all that stuff, it did happen eventually. It just happened too late. That is incredibly important because is that enough to roll it out and run it back in 2024 with this duo? Is it enough? Last 5-6 weeks of the season. This is a legitimate debate to have. Frankly, one I didn't think
we would have based on the first 12 or so weeks of the season. But the way they finished cannot be ignored. But the way they started cannot be ignored either. So it's something I'm quite sure Dennis Allen has been thinking about. What do you do? What do you do? Do you start over again with Derek Carr and whomever this new OC would be? Or do you keep the train moving and fundamentally ask yourself, we're just going to pick up where we left off, but also can Derek Carr and Pete Carmichael's chemistry at their best, is it enough to get to the level that we're seeing right now in the postseason? Because as I said, Sil, that matters. And that is the theme to me of the first weekend of the postseason, is how in tune. And then Mahomes and Andy Reid are always going to be on that same page, even though I think you see when Bieniemy's now gone, even the Chiefs at times have seemed a little shaky. Now, they look great Saturday night, but I think that's the theme of the weekend, and that's if you're the Saints watching the postseason right now, the wild card weekend, you've got that can't be that hard to notice just how much these coordinators and quarterbacks seem to be on the same page. Now, we'll see how the rest of the playoffs play itself out, but to me, that's the fundamental question. Do you run it back? Have they shown enough? Is the last 5 weeks close to what we're going to see in 2024, or the first 12 or 13 weeks close to what we're going to see in 2024? And obviously, you want the latter to be true if you're going to run it back with the Carmichael Carr thing. But also, is there something else there that could be better despite having the quote-unquote start over?
And I think with everything that's been done in these wild card games so far, the one thing that kind of remains constant throughout, when you look at the teams that lost in the first round here, they don't have what you're talking about. When you look at as good as Joe Flacco was for the latter part of the season, it wasn't enough to go bar for bar with C.J. Stroud. You look the only game that you can really look at that you could say was both quarterbacks had success with their play caller was the Lions and Rams game.
Yeah, that was the best game of the weekend. That was the best game of the weekend. And we'll see, again, at the time of this live stream, that we're about halftime of the Bills-Steelers game, and we still have Tampa Bay and Philly tonight, but that was the best. That was the best game of the weekend. And look, I thought Goff played I thought Stafford played well with McKay, but also Sean McKay, but McVay, excuse me. But they bogged down inside the red zone. That was obviously the difference in the game. But I thought Lions coordinator was very dialed in with the quarterback versus what he was going to see. So to me, like that's a clear line of teams in the NFL. You have that or you don't. And maybe in eras past, you didn't need it as much as you need it today, but you need it right now because that's just the way the league is right now.
And I think for the Saints to get to that point where they have someone that can be dialed in with Derek Carr, if that's who they indeed remains as the starter, John Gruden could possibly end up here with the Saints in some sort of advisory role. Maybe he takes on a bigger role as things go on. But we know, because our good buddy Jeff Duncan with NOLA.com has reported that the team has spoken to John Gruden.
So, we can't have this discussion without having, or this debate without inevitably talking about that news that broke last week, because John Gruden is obviously a name, is obviously a guy that comes with a reputation / resume. It's an intriguing situation or intriguing person to look at because you can say his style. Guys like him, like McCarthy runs the West Coast offense. There's a debate about whether or not maybe that has had his day. So there's that debate, but there's also he is a strong presence that I'm not sure this coaching staff has. They're just a presence. And that could this coaching staff / locker room organization use that? I think
we talked about that a little bit last episode.
You can make the case for it. Now he has some baggage, which I'm sure if the Saints are considering that, they've considered the backlash which could potentially come with that at some point, and they would be willing to withstand it, especially if you were able to get most of the locker room on board. But no hire yet. Let's be clear about that. No hire yet. He's been out there. His name's been out there, and there was the report about them meeting or having dinner or something or whatever it was. Was it the Tampa game? Maybe that is the missing piece. Who knows? Maybe that's we're going to keep the ball rolling with momentum that we had while also infusing enough tweaks to not take a step back, but also enhance what we saw within the same system to get the best out of Carr.
It's worth noting, too, that Carr had his best statistical season.
That's it. He had a great run under John Gruden. I mean, people realize when he, I guess, did he get fired or did he technically resign from the Raiders? I don't remember exactly.
It was like a mutual parting.
Yeah,
or something
mutual
like
parting
that.
ways. I know it was a huge controversy. I don't remember if it was a physical, you're fired or what. It doesn't matter. He had to leave mid-season. They were having a really good season that year. But here's the other thing. As I mentioned, there's reasons for it. There's reasons against it. But if you wanted to go in total opposite direction and just say, you know what? Let's pull the plug. Let's start over. Let's find the next Shanahan disciple, because that's where you're pulling from. You're pulling from the Shanahan tree. Then there's definitely enough evidence out there right now to go in that direction as well. Because like I said, 12 weeks, they were one way. 11 or 12 games, they were one way. 6 or 7 games, they were another way. But the bottom line is this. Getting the best out of their investment in Derek Carr is the absolute most important thing, because you get the most out of him, the entire offense gets better. And this is why I love playoff football, because it tells the truth on what's really happening around the NFL, what is and is not working. You can talk yourself into it throughout the season with this and that and injuries, blah, 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 blah. But right now, there are teams left standing playing. And when there's a multitude of teams having the same characteristic, you cannot ignore that. And the truth is, quarterback and play calling chemistry freaking matters. And it just feels like has been elevated over the last 2 or 3 years, but in particular this year, it has really jumped out. I mean, it just jumped out to me watching those games on Saturday and Sunday, and then even some on Monday. Watched the first half of the Bills game before we started to do this live stream, and obviously they made a nice switch at coordinator as well, and who knows if that's been the secret sauce for the Bills sort of, making their little run here. So I think that's something the Saints, they took this week to kind of unplug. They're back, last week to unplug. Now they're back this week. That's a good thing to do. You don't want to make any just decompress a little bit.
Yeah.
Get the emotion out of it, and then you can clearly and logically look at each thing and realistically not just see what you have done, but what you can do with each coach going forward. And I think there is none bigger than the debate over how do you get the best out of Derek Carr, not just with players on the field, but with play calling and chemistry with the coordinator. And I think that is probably one of the biggest decisions Dennis Allen has to make, provided that they're going to stick with the Dennis Allen experiment, which obviously certainly feels like they are going to do, based off of what he said, certainly based off of what Mickey Loomis has inferred. So I don't foresee a change there. So if you're making that change, if you're not making that change, you gotta figure it out some kind of way. It's no different than what you're going to do when you look at the roster, which we'll get into in our next pod, some potential moves that could be happening. But you got to take a really close, hard look at the coaching staff. And to me, I'm curious. Let's just say hypothetically, Gruden is the guy. I would be a little concerned if they're blurred lines, who's really in control, who's really calling the plays, who's really suggesting the stuff, who's really getting their way. I would be really concerned, because that could work, but that could also lead to a disaster as well.
Yeah, it could. And now, in your professional opinion, Sean, if the Saints were to make a move when it comes to the coaching staff, not DA, but on the offensive staff, when they decide to clean house, when do you think fans could expect them to do that?
It would have to be this week. I would think you would have to start hearing some names this week, because coaching staff, first off, vacancies are getting, I don't know when you can actually make a hire for head coaches, but I would think they're going to make some moves or start to at least the process of that this week, and then final decisions by the end of the month for sure, because you're going to the Senior Bowl at the end of the month. You got to get your stuff in place.
Absolutely.
So the timing is of essence, but was it the running backs coach Joel Thomas? He took an interview with the New York Giants, so I don't know if that's a situation where he was looking to get out or. But point being, this is the time of year where those moves tend to happen. So, we should hear something fairly soon. The biggest name obviously is Gruden, and A, if he gets hired, and B, what's his official role? If it's another vague role, I'd be very curious how that ends up kind of laying itself out when it comes to week-to-week, game-to-game type situations.
All right, so I think we reached that point in the show.
We have reached that point. All right, so we're gonna stay with big picture. but it's a big picture for this podcast. It's not big picture for our Saints coverage. It is big picture for our podcast, and usually I'm the one delivering the big picture, but now I'm going to pass it off to my co-host, Vasilios, because he has some news to break on the big picture in his own life. Go ahead,
So in a couple of weeks, this podcast is going to look a little different. It's not going to be another set change. We're not getting more brick in here or anything like that. But after nearly 3 years of working here at Fox 8, I have accepted a job in Washington, D.C. as a sports producer up in those parts. It's incredibly bittersweet, but it's a move that gets me closer to home and closer to my family. And, you know, I'm up from Baltimore, so it's a really, really good move. We still have a couple more episodes and everything before the move's finalized, so I'm not going anywhere just yet or right after this episode or anything like that, but 3 years doesn't sound like a long time, but when you quantify it by the sheer amount of content we put out, Sean, and you know how much I love stats, nearly 4,000 sportscasts, over 700 sports shows, and well over 100 episodes of this podcast that we do together.
Yeah.
Firstly, I want to thank you for trusting me with helping to grow this podcast. When I first jumped on the mic with you and Chris Hagan back in 2021, we were on episode 241. We are now on episode 467.
Yeah.
I couldn't have asked for a better co-host and a better friend to geek out on NFL football with.
It's fun.
I also want to thank Juan Kincaid, Madeline Adams, Garland Gillen, Andre Johnson, and Edwin Good for teaching me not just how to be a better producer, but a better person. In its own way, this department has been family to me, and I'll miss you all a ton. New Orleans has become a second home to me, and the impression it left on me won't be going anywhere anytime soon. Excuse me. I make connections that'll last a lifetime. And thank you, our viewers, the Saints fans that we do this for. Thank you for adopting me into your fandom, and it's been an absolute treat to talk about the black and gold with you. And lastly, I want to shout out my fan back home. I wouldn't have succeeded without their support, and I know they're going to be thrilled to have me back. They're already counting down the days. And I love you, New Orleans, and you bet I'll be back to visit sometime soon.
So, Sil, we got a couple more episodes together, but you said a lot there, so I'll follow up. That was the first time me hearing it, so you didn't let me see that before. So I'll just say it's been awesome. It's been great. When Sil first got here, we were a little worried about him because he thought when we first got here, he came from Baltimore. But this station, we do a lot of content in the sports production world.
More than I've ever done.
It's not easy. You're walking into a lot of shows, and I think you learned real quick how efficient you have to be and how much you have to stay on top of everything. So we were a little worried at first, but you found your footing, and you found a nice little kind of role for yourself. And then you had this podcast board here, and we decided to. I guess it was about maybe 9 or 10 months ago. I really decided because I'd just been I'd been home one day, and I was realizing how many Saints podcasts there were out there, like on YouTube, and I was like, well, we gotta get a piece of this. Like we gotta get in on the action here because we're completely ignoring this lane, and here we are. We went through like 3 or 4 different set changes, but here we are. So it's been a heck of a run. I've enjoyed it. I don't know who my new co-host is going to be just yet. I have an idea who it might be. We're going to keep doing the Monday, Wednesday, Friday thing, and then we'll just keep going from there. But as for you, I'm thrilled for you because I know you're from. You're one of those. You're a Baltimore guy the way we're New Orleans guys. You're like you breed. You're a Baltimore guy. You eat, sleep, and breathe that stuff. And I know you're working in Washington D.C. Is that correct?
I am. Yes.
So you can live in Baltimore and commute to Washington D.C. How long is that? How long of a commute is that?
I weighs the drive. It's going to be like 50 minutes or so, but it's not so bad considering the time I'm going to be commuting. So
okay, well time of day would be nice. So I hope you take what you've learned here. I know it was a lot. And it was a just sheer quantity of content we produce. I know it's not the easiest thing to get adjusted to, but you did well for yourself. So now you get that great opportunity to go to a top 10 market in DC?
It is a top 10 market.
Top 10 market. That's huge news. For just the natural evolution in the TV business to get to a top 10 market. So I'm thrilled for you. I'm sad you're leaving, but I'm happy you're getting that opportunity. I met your family a little bit throughout the 3 years here. I know they're thrilled to get you back. So I wish you all the best, my friend. It's been fun.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. And we talked about this a little bit off air. I'm going to be covering a lot of Commanders stuff, and the Commanders next season will be coming down here to take on the Saints, and so maybe Sean and I will get a little something in the works for that.
Maybe so. We might try to figure something out for the next time the Saints and Commanders meet up here in New Orleans next year. So,
but all right, thank you, Sean. Seriously, man.
Yeah, man, it's been great. It's been fun.
All right, for Sean Fazende, I'm Vasilios. This has been the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. We'll catch you guys next time.